Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And in this case, we're talking about the power of mediation. That's why we're honored to have with us Shannon Wagner, Executive Director of the Nashville Conflict Resolution Center. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. This is a very important conversation. And so let's start with a little bit of history for the organization, and then we'll dive into the power of mediation. So give us some background.
Sure. We were started 25 years ago by a group of folks who were dedicated to mediation in the community through the Nashville Bar Association. And some of those people are still involved, very much involved in our organization today, just to demonstrate the power and the commitment that they had at the time. And since then, we've grown tremendously, and now we serve 16 counties, offering mediation to those who can't afford it.
Talk about the power of mediation, because it's collaborative, it's not public, which really is important too. So talk about the importance and the power of mediation.
Yes, thank you for that question. Mediation is, in my opinion, the most powerful tool in our justice system. It is equitable, it's accessible, as you said, it's self-determined. So instead of maybe being in a courtroom where individuals are, your business is aired for everyone in the courtroom, you can participate actively in determining what your future is. So, for example, we serve a lot of parents, and there's a lot to think about when you are trying to work out custody and parental agreements. And so those little small, minute things that might not be able to be addressed in a courtroom can be addressed and talked about in a mediation room. And it's confidential, it's inclusive, so grandma can join. It just allows the family to come together in a really meaningful and compassionate way.
Talk about the process in terms of where it starts. And I know that, you cover a wide variety of topics and issues, so touch on that piece, but talk about kind of how it starts and then walk us through the process.
Right. So someone generally is referred to us from the court system, or we have a lot of self-referrals. So you are in some type of deep conflict. It's probably been going on for a while. You sit down at a mediation table, either figuratively or literally. So we do a lot of our mediations virtually, which is really important for accessibility. So not fighting Nashville traffic, for example, to get to the mediation table. And the mediator is going to do what we call an agreement to mediate. So they're going to make sure everyone is really comfortable in that space. They're going to outline some guidelines and some, I hate calling them rules for the day, but, treating each other with respect and dignity, no matter how emotional or heated it gets. And then they're going to go through the different parts of what the conflict is. So if it's for parenting, for example, it can get pretty logistical. If it is more of a restorative or a social emotional conversation, it's going to be going back to the heart and soul of what happened in the beginning and starting to unpack all of those layered feelings, the circumstances around it. And really, again, it's a safe space, not to be too cliche, but it really is a safe space for people to address what has been on their mind and on their hearts. So a lot of times, when we're in deep conflict, and I do this myself, maybe we're not talking about the elephant in the room. And when you are in a safe space with a mediator who is really great at facilitating and can draw that out of all of the parties, it just creates an opportunity for everyone to have a really authentic conversation. And it's often compared to therapy. It's definitely not therapy, but especially for community mediation, we really focus on social, emotional, and same room communication. So sometimes families haven't spoken about this issue without yelling at each other, or teenagers who are in a dispute at school haven't really talked to each other without all of their peers around. And so it really gives the opportunity for everyone to calmly address the heart of the matter.
You've touched on obviously parents. You've touched on obviously children and students that's, conflict at schools. What are some other topics and areas that mediation is really powerful in solving and being a solution for?
Yes. One of the other areas that I haven't mentioned yet is our civil program, and that's how we were actually founded 25 years ago in Davidson County at our General Sessions Court. We have our wonderful director of civil goes down to Davidson County, and now we partner also in Sumner County. And we do a lot of pro se service to those who are not represented in the court system. So you have maybe a landlord and a tenant. So small claims, a lot of eviction prevention. We're actually part of a wonderful program with Legal Aid and Hispanic Bar and AMAC, which really focuses on eviction prevention for families in Nashville, which we know is absolutely, a really big problem in Nashville right now. And the eviction rates have only gone up since the pandemic. And so we are really proud to be a part of that. And that is also a huge part of what we do on a daily basis. So parenting, civil, and then what we call victim offender, which includes adults and children. And that's the restorative process that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So different types, slightly different types of mediation, but all focused on giving people the opportunity to air their grievances, talk, and work through the conflict outside of a courtroom.
When someone comes in for mediation, what are some recommendations for them to be prepared? So in other words, come in with an open mind, calm. So what are some things that you want them to know ahead of time to be prepared for the best end result possible?
I would say to have positive intent, to assume that the other party, that you're coming to mediation with the right focus, and that you're there and present in that room. We all have a lot of very busy schedules. And especially for those parents who have so much going on, I would recommend just coming to it with an open mind, positive intent, and giving space for that day. There can be a lot in terms of working through the different parts and pieces. And so the other thing I would say is patience for the process, trusting in the process, and knowing that ultimately the power is in your hands. That's one of the wonderful things about mediation, is that I can't say the word self-determined enough. You really get to decide what is right for you and your family and your circumstances. And so being really open, okay, I need to take a step back, or I need to take a break. That is allowable within that process. And so being committed to the process, being respectful, but also being patient and trusting the process is important.
Obviously, you don't have to name any names, but give us a story recently that stands out to you, a success story in terms of, how mediation really has helped both parties come up with an equitable solution.
One of my favorite stories recently is between two parents who were both immigrants and had very traumatic background, we'll say. And they'd been living in the United States for quite some time, but were living in very different places. They were about an hour and a half from each other. There was no car. There were multiple kiddos involved. And we had interpreters. And so you can imagine there's attorneys, there's our mediator, there's interpreters, there's parents, there's other guardians that are involved. It was a big crowd. And yet through consistent work over the period of several hours, lots of snacks and water breaks, we were able to come to an agreement that worked for that family, despite all of the access issues and traveling. And it was so powerful by the end. This was one of the ones that we did in person recently. And so I got to speak with the mediator after, and the way in which, sometimes when a mediation starts, you don't know how it's going to go. And this was one that, with a lot of diligence and a lot of people that really cared about this family, we were able to come to a conclusion, and children were able to have a relationship with both parents. Both parents were able to see the other's perspective in a new way. And so it was really, really quite beautiful, and sort of the ideal in terms of starting out at a really high fever pitch and working through to a place of calm, respect, dignity for everyone involved.
I know that you all do workshops, a lot of education and advocacy in the community. So talk about that side of things.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So we do the community mediation, and then we also do what we call our community education. So we have a lunch and learn series, and even if you are not a practicing mediator or an attorney, we sometimes have some really great topics. For instance, our most recent one was on compassion fatigue and secondary trauma, and it was one of our most well attended. And that is every other month. And then we also do a series where we can sort of take the show on the road a little bit and come to your office or your nonprofit and speak about conflict 101, about basic de-escalation tactics, and all of the social, emotional, and the things that go into the really important things that can prevent conflict and can then start to address it once it has started in your workplace or in your family. So happy to do that. And it's always wonderful. The feedback that we get on that program is wonderful.
I know there are many, but give us, one tip, one of your favorites when it comes to de-escalation, conflict resolution. So what's one of your favorite tips to share?
I would say it's so simple, but take a step back and think about the other person's perspective. It is one of the elephants in the room is that it is election season. We're all sort of worked up. Nashville traffic can make me as crazy as anyone. And to take a step back and realize that even if you don't agree, there is a different perspective. And so that perspective taking and that just understanding the other point of view. One of my other tips, and I will always talk about this, is the feelings wheel. If folks aren't familiar with it, they can Google it. And it's really naming the emotion. A lot of times as adults, even, we say we're happy or we're sad or we're angry, but we don't talk about the myriad other emotions that exist. And so the feelings wheel is a wonderful tool for adults and kiddos alike, or anyone. I have one in my office to, how am I feeling today? So just that, it's noticing the other's perspective, but it's also checking in with yourself and really being honest about where you are and how you're approaching the conversation. And the feelings wheel is a really great practical tool for that.
Even back to perspective, there's a great illustration around two people standing opposite of each other, and there's a 6 or a 9, depending on which side you're looking at. And so it's like both are correct. It's just a matter of which side are you looking at. Is it a 6 or is it a 9? And so things like that, when you talk about perspective and obviously, feelings and being able to name them, so important. So carry that into, how can the community help support your efforts?
Well, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We only do what we can do with donations and support. Also, if we have an amazing volunteer corps. And so if you have ever considered being a mediator, we do offer Rule 31 training and as part of that education and outreach. And so you can always reach out to us. We have a lot of folks who are in retirement and are in a different phase of their lives who volunteer with us as mediators. And so that's a wonderful way to give back as well. And at the very least, attend one of our lunch and learns, learn about what we do, learn about conflict management. And, I always say peace starts at home. So the ability to manage those conflicts in your life and your workplaces that inevitably will happen is just a great way to support our work.
When you look at becoming a mediator, what does that training entail? How long is the process? Give us a little bit of a teaser on that side.
Yeah, so Rule 31 training in the state of Tennessee is between 40 and 46 hours. There's two routes, there's civil and there's family, and so that depends on the timing. It is, and there's many wonderful organizations that do it, including ours. We focus on those who are interested in volunteering to become community mediators. And that's the basic training to get started. And then one of the wonderful things about a community mediation center, and there's several, if there's anyone who's not based in Nashville, there's a few also in other parts of the state that will offer training and support. So you will work alongside one of our mediators, and it starts with observation, and then it moves into a co-mediation model. And so again, learning a new skill or building on some skills that you already have. And it starts with that basic 40-hour-week training, and then the learning can continue.
Well, Shannon, wrap up with where we can go to carry this conversation forward. So website, social media, where do we go to learn more and plug in with the Nashville Conflict Resolution Center?
Right. We're at nashvilleconflict.org. We're also on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. So we have it all covered. You can find us. And thank you so much. We're thrilled to be here, and really grateful for those who are supporting us.
Well, make sure everyone go to nashvilleconflict.org. Shannon Wagner, thank you for all you and your amazing team do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you for having us. Have a great one.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.